Kyle David Watson was 34 years old and a paradox. A college dropout shouldn't have had his business savvy. Someone of his intellect should never have had such trouble remaining focused in college. His calm, quiet demeanor didn't match his muscled, 6 feet 2 inches frame. His nerd-like fascination with gadgets and technology didn't match his athletic ability. His apathy toward team sports of any kind didn't match his broad shoulders, bear-like arms, or massive hands. His boyish good looks and casual dress didn't match his age. His catatonic shyness with women didn't match their desire for him. His normal, peaceful, easygoing manner did not match his cold, calculated rage as he sat at the bar, facing away from his tormentor. It doesn't have to be like this. You don't have to fight for her. You can have the witch and still walk away. Screw you. I am not here to fight for her. She already picked me. I am here to teach you a lesson. The arrogance of youth. It is what Kyle hated the most about the man standing behind him. It was as palpable as his douchebag body spray that seemed to fill the room with a foul stench. Still, Kyle wasn't about to risk going to jail for a fight. Not even a fight against the man who was screwing his wife. He swallowed the remainder of his bourbon in one gulp, then stood abruptly. When he turned, he saw exactly what he expected. The young man was flanked by 4 of his friends and was at least 4 inches taller and 30 pounds heavier than Kyle. But it was his smirk that sealed his fate. Not here. I'll be at Manny's in an hour. If you show up and Manny lets you into the ring, you can have your shot. Oh, I'll be there, a-hole. You can count on it. But you'd better be there, or I will skip all the intros at our next meeting and get straight to kicking your butt. Don't worry. I'll be there. October 6th, 2011 was the day Kyle Watson lost his wife. He just didn't know it at the time. They were at a holiday office party, a boring one at that. He had seen her kiss another man, a business associate several years her senior. It was a kiss with potential, and she knew he had seen her. The look of panic mixed with embarrassment on her face told him she knew she was caught. The look of fear in the man's eyes was proof that he knew he was caught, too. At home later that evening, when she knelt by his side crying her eyes out and gasping for breath, while he was sitting on the couch, she apologized. Kyle thought it was enough. They never spoke of it again. That may have been a mistake, but it didn't feel like it at the time. October 6th, 2011 didn't feel like such a bad day. Seeing his wife kiss another man made Kyle feel jealous and angry and sick to his stomach. He welcomed those feelings. Being able to feel anything at all was a welcome change. It had been 9 months of empty. 9 months of being lost in his own life, his own house, his own skin. 9 months since he had lost his little girl. Emily was 9 years old at the time of the accident. She had a winning smile, impossible brunette curls, and the voice of a miniature princess. She was also stubborn as a mule, unashamedly curious about everything and had the ability to melt her father with one look from her glacially blue eyes. Kyle only missed her when his heart was beating. The child who had taken her life wasn't speeding, drinking, or texting. He was in his first year of driving his first car, a meticulously clean piece of junk, clunker. There was no way he could have stopped his car in time. No one could have. Definitely not a 16-year-old. Emily had been sledding with Dana's parents. It was the first big snowfall of the year. 7 inches of pristine powder had paved the way towards his daughter's death. Dana's parents weren't at fault either. The hill had been prime real estate for winter fun since Kyle had been a child. There was almost 20 feet of flatland between the bottom of the hill and the street, 5 more feet of sidewalk and a bank of snow that was capable of stopping the largest of runaway inner tubes. Emily should have stopped in plenty of time, but it didn't. Dana's father, Charles Whitmore, 3, had recounted the morbid tale to Kyle dozens of times, apologizing every time. He would cry as he remembered Emily barreling down the hill over and over, climbing a little bit higher every time, getting braver and braver with each climb. It was only a few seconds. He and his wife were preparing to leave and trying to decide on the best place for lunch. In that small amount of time, Emily chose to race to the very top of the hill and take a running dive onto her tube, head first. Then came the series of what-ifs. What if Charles Whitmore hadn't tripped in the deep snow as he tried in vain to stop the young? What if Emily was a year older and 5 pounds heavier, or had placed her hand out to touch the snow? Would her momentum have been stopped? No one would know for sure. But what followed was a perfect cacophony of screams and screeching brakes and sirens and wailing that ended only when Emily Christine Watson was pronounced dead at 11:46 in the morning on January 6, 2011, with barely a month left until what would have been her 10th birthday. What would have been almost never was. That thought placated Kyle's anger at the world when he would let himself be angry. Emily was born 6 weeks premature. The doctors had waited only long enough for a single test to indicate that Emily's underdeveloped lungs would function at all outside of the womb before they wheeled his severely ill wife to the operating room. Kyle's vocabulary grew every minute he was at the hospital. Preeclampsia, severe hypertension, cesarean section, hemorrhage, hysterectomy, neonatal intensive care. But after just a few weeks in the hospital, both mother and daughter were safely at home. Emily was so small that she couldn't nurse properly. So, while his wife dutifully pumped her breast milk for their child, it was Kyle who prepared the syringe and fed Emily by allowing her to suck on the tip of his pinky finger while painstakingly slowly dosing her food through the attached plastic tubing. The process sealed their bond as a family, mother and father and daughter, wife and husband and child. The next 9 years flew by in the blink of an eye. Kyle cherished those years and the love he felt from both Emily and Dana. It made him feel safe and whole and grounded. He missed the fact that Emily could never call for him once. It was always, "Daddy, Daddy." He missed turning around from his playtime with Emily to see his wife leaning against the door frame with a contented smile brightening her face. He missed those things and feelings so much. The counseling sessions weren't going well. Kyle knew that. He had hoped Dana would open up to anyone about what she was feeling. The counselor was his last hope. He had tried to talk about adoption, or foster parenting, or just living with the fact that he and Dana had loved a precious little girl, and now that part of their lives was over. They had grieved. Maybe it hadn't been enough, but Dana remained hidden behind her job, and her work friends and their drinking and other strange behavior. Kyle couldn't put his feeling into words, but he knew something wasn't right. That kiss was just one of the signs that had left him feeling uneasy. Miguel Manny Martinez was a former gang member turned good guy. By day, he ran a community center for troubled youth. By night, he ran the area's only boxing and mixed martial arts training center. He was also a beast of a man. 6 feet 5 inches, 230 pounds of solid, chiseled muscle. He mostly hid the tattoos that told the story of his former life. But the tiger's paw and claws that curved around the base of his neck were always visible and a constant reminder of where he had come from. He was also the best trainer in the tri-state area with Golden Gloves champions and MMA up-and-comers seeking his services in droves. Kyle was not going to be his latest and greatest. Manny sought out Kyle after the dedication ceremony for the new safety features, like the 10-foot-high safety fence at Hyde Memorial Park. The man seemed lost while giving his speech. Manny recognized the pain having been witness to too many families that had lost a child to violence. He felt he could help this man, and felt a calling to do just that. Their conversations had been brief at first, nothing more than introductions and condolences. But a strange fellowship formed between the man who lost his child in an accident and the man who had seen too many children lost to the streets. It was Manny who suggested Kyle come to train at his gym as a form of stress relief. "The sweat will do you good. Trust me," he had told Kyle. And it did. His first session in the gym was designed for a single purpose, to work Kyle to exhaustion. Manny punished Kyle's body with aerobic activities and strength training, and when Kyle felt he couldn't move another inch, Manny pushed him harder. Then Manny drove Kyle home and helped him into his house and put him in bed, where Kyle fell into his first night of real sleep in almost a year. A sore but refreshed Kyle showed up at the gym the next night and nearly every night thereafter. Training, sparring, learning and talking. It brought him a sense of focus and clarity and connection to his body and spirit. Unfortunately, he just wasn't a very good fighter. Manny knew why. Kyle didn't have a mean bone in his body. The word arrogant wasn't even in his dictionary. The body of a titan, the killer instinct of a mouse. Those thoughts actually made Manny smile. He had not known very many genuinely nice people in his life. It was a nice change of pace. She broke up with him over the phone. It was so pathetic and cliché. All Kyle could do was laugh at the drudgery that had become his life. But it also made him take a good hard look at himself. It was true. He wasn't happy. At least she had been right about that. It's just that with me being out here and you being back there, I am just not having any fun and I should at least be enjoying myself. But I'm not. You can't be happy, either. It's nothing permanent. If we are meant to be together, we will be, just not while we are so far apart. You're breaking up with me? Over the phone? You just broke up with me, Kyle said, or rather whispered, the words out loud mostly so that he could hear them, to make sure that what he heard was actually real. Kyle, honey, it's not like that. No, it's okay, Dana. So you're wild oats and all that. I get it. Listen, I've got to run. I'll talk to you later. Dana Whitmore had been Kyle's only girlfriend. To be frank, though Kyle had an exceptionally large group of friends, from both sexes, Dana was one of the few people he actually felt comfortable with. She was just so nice and had always been from their very first meeting on their very first day in middle school homeroom. It didn't hurt that she was cute as a button back then and aged into an absolute knockout. Kyle decided it didn't matter how nice or beautiful she was. She didn't want him anymore, and that was that. He did wonder briefly, however irrational it may have sounded to anyone who had ever laid eyes on him, if he would ever have sex again, having lost his virginity to a girl who no longer loved him. Kyle was 20 years old and just starting his junior year when he dropped out of college. Everyone told him he was crazy, and even though he thought they were probably right, he just couldn't drag himself out of bed to go to class. He hated his classes, he wasn't very fond of the professors, and he couldn't believe that some of his classmates had even graduated high school. He just knew he didn't feel comfortable, or that he was learning anything that was relevant to the real world, and he felt that the worst-case scenario was that he would take a semester break, lose half of his tuition, and try again later. He never had to worry about it. He started in the mailroom. It was unheard of for someone to move from a menial administrative position to the technical side of the house. But it happened. Barely a month into his new life, the man slammed the phone down in an attempt to vent his frustration. The account, for a large photography printing outfit, was almost surely lost. The customer was furious. They asked for a new software platform and the equipment to run it, a $250,000 contract, and no hassles. It should have been easy, but now they were having daily complaints about distorted images on their screens. The technical department had been over the job specs dozens of times, and the platform had been tested, without error, over and over. It's their monitors, not our hardware or software. Kyle had just dropped off a package and was walking back out the door. He wasn't consciously listening to the conversation, nor was he commenting to anyone but himself. He was shocked when the man called him back to the office. Over the next half hour, Kyle explained the article he had seen in last month's journal, compatibility problems with one company's monitors and another's video cards. The article had stuck in his mind because both companies had a reputation for building top-quality products. He thought it was funny that their products didn't play nicely together. During the discussion, Kyle was witty and charming, and knew details for beyond his level of experience. When the man pushed him on how and why he knew so much, Kyle honestly had no explanation. "I'm not sure. Chronic case of nerdiness?" That sealed the deal. Kyle's new boss chuckled all the way to human resources. Kyle started out on the technical help desk the next week. 6 months later, he was promoted to lead technician. 6 months after that, he had his first shot as a project leader. His natural leadership, confidence, and ability to genuinely connect with people reveled in the spotlight. But it was his ability to diagnose complicated problems and develop innovative and effective solutions that caught the eye of his superiors. Kyle rode his success to a position as the youngest senior project leader in company history. He bought a house and a car and a dog and had money to spare. His friends were shocked with his success. His boss was stunned and still chuckling whenever he got to tell the story about how the kid, who was dropping off his mail, had saved his skin. It had been 2 years, probably the best in his life. But Kyle felt a little empty until she was there, on a random afternoon in June. Sitting on his porch, Kyle sat in his driveway, car still running, just looking at her for the longest time. She tried to call him once, about a month after their breakup. He let the call go to voicemail. He deleted her message before he listened to it. He let her into his house, without saying a word. Kyle poured her a glass of orange juice and grabbed a glass of ice water for himself. They sat down at the kitchen table and sipped their drinks, neither saying a word for a painfully long time. Kyle didn't have a clue what to say. Dana had a couple of false starts before she was able to speak. "It was the stupidest thing I have ever done, Kyle. I dated, a couple of times. One guy, twice. But I swear I never, ever let anyone else. I'm so sorry, Kyle. I never." He was across the table and kissing her with a passion suppressed for far too long before she could finish. Dana tried to apologize several more times during the next 48 hours, but never quite got around to finishing her thought. They were married in less than 9 months. Emily arrived a year later. It had been 3 months since that embarrassing kiss and things had been better. It was as if Dana was presenting Kyle with a glimpse of their former marriage. She was attentive and loving and playful and happy, but she wouldn't talk. Not about anything real. Not about anything that mattered. Maybe she didn't know Kyle could hear her crying while she was in the shower. Maybe she didn't know that she would sometimes stare at the wall or lose her train of thought mid-conversation. But Kyle could hear her, and he could see her. He knew that all his hopes were based on a facade, and it scared him. "I need your help, doctor." There had been a few moments of silence after Dana had stormed out of the office and ended the session. "It was just a kiss. It didn't mean anything then, and it doesn't mean anything now. I said I was sorry and I meant it. Grow the hell up." At least they were talking about it. That had to mean something. But the longer Kyle thought about it, the more he panicked. "I am doing my best to help both you and your wife, Kyle. I know that, doctor, and I appreciate it. I really do. And we are here and we are talking. And that's a good thing, or at least I hope it is. And I can live with it. I can hold on, by my fingernails if I have to. I can hang in there and be supportive and get treated like crap and watch and wait, and be patient and anything else, for that matter. I love her and I want her back. But I need your help." Kyle wasn't a crier and he wasn't a baby and wasn't used to begging, but it was all he had left. "If you tell me that she is getting better, I'll believe you. Anything, a tiny breakthrough, a glimmer of hope, anything. Tell me you've seen it. Please, if you have, tell me. She's been coming to your office every week for 3 months. So there has to be something, right? Some sign. Maybe she has said something, or done something. I'll take anything. Anything at all. But please, I need something. I need your help." Desperation wasn't a good look for Kyle, and Dr. Harris was conflicted. If there was ever a reason to break doctor-patient confidentiality, this would have been it. But he couldn't offer the broken man sitting in his office any comfort. The years had brought any number of cases through his door. Addictions, infidelities, mental illness, but never one quite as heartbreaking as this one. "I'm sorry I can't do that. I'm ethically. The sigh from Kyle was so long and came from such depth that it was as if his soul was trying to escape his body. I'm afraid I couldn't share those things with you. And even if I could, I wouldn't be able to give you what you were asking for. Kyle knew what the doctor was trying to tell him without telling him, and he tried to hold back the tears and his frustration, and after a flash of failure, that is exactly what he did. Yeah, okay, doctor. Thanks. I guess I'll just have to be patient. So, we'll see you next week. The facade came crumbling down after their last session. Dana was late coming home from work almost every night, stopping for drinks with her co-workers on a daily basis. Kyle rarely knew where she was or who she was with. It had been 2 weeks of more hurtful comments and general disdain that reared its ugly head one more time on that Friday night. I'm drunk. Come pick me up. I'm at the station. The station was a college bar, the favorite hangout of the frat boys spending daddy's money. Kyle had taken a cab downtown and was standing next to Dana's minivan when he spotted her coming out of the bar, hanging on the arm of some Playboy wannabe. They stopped about 20 feet from Kyle, and Dana handed the boy a piece of paper. Call me. You bet, baby. The show was meant for Kyle, and he knew it, and it hurt. They drove in relative silence back to their home. Dana was drunkenly giggling in the passenger seat, while Kyle just stared at the road and the darkness that was in front of him. A darkness that was surrounding him in every possible way. Manny was surprised to see Kyle, and even more surprised to see him grabbing his sparing gear out of his locker and changing quietly on one of the benches. But he couldn't stop and talk. There was a new group of bad boys that wanted a daily pass waiting for him at the counter. It's $10 each for the night to use the equipment and share a locker. Nah, man, I want to get in the ring. Manny gave the big guy in front of the group the once-over. He clearly had some training. Manny asked the standard questions, and the young man had all the right answers, a wrestling background, and was willing to sign the liability waivers. It didn't feel quite right, but Manny couldn't put his finger on why. The guy was a-hole. So Manny decided it was just his general dislike for a-holes that put the kid on his radar. Okay, there aren't many people looking to spar tonight, but it's your money. Oh, I'm sure someone will give me a shot, Jose. Yep, Manny thought, a-hole. People in the gym were in the same jovial mood as always. There was of course a little trash talking, some towel tossing, and a water fight. Kyle sat alone on a bench, head in his hands. Jake Lichty was eager to hop in ring, not even bothering to warm up. Jorge, one of the trainers, checked his headgear, gloves, and mouthpiece, shaking his head as the kid threw air punches and hoped around like he was getting ready for a prize fight. Calm down, Rocky. No one is even up to spar ton. Jorge stopped short as he watched Kyle step between the ropes. What's up, homie? Kyle stood stoically as Jorge checked him over. You all right, Kyle? Fine, man. Just fine. 3 minutes. 5. Whatever, Holmes. That's a big lug over there. Jorge rang the bell, Manny stepping up behind him. Jake threw a roundhouse that caught nothing but air, then ate a short left jab. Kyle followed with an inside leg kick that popped just above Jake's right knee and a wicked body shot that landed just above Jake's left hip. Then he skipped away to the center of the ring. Manny hollered into the ring. Damn, Kyle. You may make me forget that you can't fight worth a junk with shots like that. Then he wandered away from the ring, laughing, and up the stairs to his office. It was a punishing 5-minute round. Kyle dropped his guard once and could tell that the stinging sensation under his left eye was going to leave a mark that would last for some time. Still, he walked casually towards his corner and stood resting his elbows on the top of the ropes, taking in a few deep breaths. Jake, however, was hunched over on his stool, holding a towel to his lip. The blood stained every part of the towel it touched, but it didn't really hurt. Then again, maybe it did, but it didn't nearly as much as the rest of his body. His legs were throbbing from kick after kick. There was already a bruise on his left shin. His cheeks were starting to swell from all the jabs that had come his way. At one point, he thought he had the upper hand, landing a huge right hook to the eye of his opponent, but the guy barely moved. But, while Kyle was momentarily stunned, Jake rushed him and used his formidable size to shove him into a corner. It hadn't lasted long. A short uppercut had moved Jake back, and he soon found himself with his back to the ropes, his hands wrestling with Kyle's, trying to gain the upper hand while he was taking knee after knee to his torso. Left, right, pause, right, left. And again, Jake stared at his opponent, trying hard not to lift his head farther than he had to. He felt like he couldn't breathe. Kyle looked like he hadn't broken a sweat. The muffled ding announced that the short break was over. Kyle strolled into the center of the ring. You can still walk away. Screw you, old man. Okay, I tried. When you're wondering later on, that first round was for screwing my wife. This one is for where you did it. So, show me what you have left. When he thought about it later, Jake realized the number of ways he had underestimated his opponent and basically dove, head first, into the beating of his life. His size was countered by skill. His youth was countered by endurance and training. His arrogance countered by rage. But, at that moment, none of those things stopped him from growling and diving at Kyle's legs. It would be his last mistake. Kyle shot his legs backwards and pushed his hips high, all while grappling Jake's head with a force that equaled his size. The shift in momentum couldn't be missed, and Jake tumbled to the ground, landing on his back. Like a man possessed, Kyle was on him in an instant. "Manny! Manny!" Jorge screamed. He had listened to the conversation as best he could, and when understood the implications, he started to call for help. But it was too late. Kyle was seated atop Jake in full guard. Jake tried to protect his face with his arms, but it was futile. In the superior position, Kyle drove his fists to the mat. Jake's face just happened to be in the way. Blow after blow rained down. When Kyle's arms tired, he started with the hammer fists by the dozens. When Jake's nose broke and splashed blood across the floor, he reached towards Kyle's face in a final attempt to push him away. And that was the end. Kyle grabbed Jake's wrist and twisted his hips, gathering Jake's arm between his legs. Kyle's left calf was pushing against Jake's throat, his feet crossed at his ankles, pressing down against Jake's chest. As Kyle pushed his hips in the air and his shoulders to the mat, he twisted Jake's limb, which was fully captured in the armbar. Manny came running down the stairs just in time to hear the snap. The scream was frightening, and then the crying started. Kyle stoically exited the ring and tossed his gear in his locker, gathering his clothes in his arms, and walked out of the gym. He didn't feel bad, not by any means, but he didn't feel better. This is what Dana wanted. A man who didn't know her husband, who couldn't respect him, who would never fear him. As her body was pushed against the door and his hands started tearing her clothes from her body, she struggled to find her key and place it in the lock. She hadn't even bothered to see if anyone was milling about. Soon they were in the bedroom. Jake was at a loss for words. He felt stuck against the wall, paralyzed momentarily, as he watched the woman, dressed now in only panties and heels, stroll casually towards the hallway. Jake had never had such an easy pickup. Less than a week earlier, a slightly tipsy Dana Watson had basically propositioned him. It had been a little shocking because it was hard to miss the giant rock on her finger. "I think I'd enjoy screwing you." Well, who am I to argue? But your husband might not like that idea. Screw him. Exactly. It was hard to tell if she was joking when she said she was calling her husband for a ride home. But the guy actually showed. Jake hadn't even waited 24 hours before he'd made the call. And now he could only hold his breath as he watched Dana walk to him. The fact that she was older didn't mean much. She was hot. Jake didn't pay much attention to the room's decor. Someone could have been holding a gun at his back in the corner of the room, and he wouldn't have noticed. His focus was on Dana Watson. Jake didn't bother with any preliminaries as he started having sex with her. Soon he turned her around. She turned, and when she refocused her eyes, she was staring at the comforter beneath her. She reached forward and traced the colorful flower applique with her finger. Emily loved flowers. All kinds, really. Tulips, roses, daisies. Dana started to laugh as she recalled how Emily even argued to save the dandelions in the yard. "They're beautiful, Mama. Tiny, little sunflowers. We can't kill them. We just can't." She remembered Kyle holding in his laughter as Emily, all of 4 years old, tattled on her mother. "Daddy, Daddy, Mama needs a spanking." She killed all the dandelions and the flowers, too. All of them, Daddy, with a sprayer, and it smelled really bad. Kyle had knelt to give Emily a hug as he looked up at Dana. The fire in his eyes caused Dana's knees to buckle as he whispered, "We'll talk about your spanking later, Mommy." That was awesome. Jake's voice grated Dana away from her wonderful memory. And now everything that she knew she wanted was wrong. "Get up, we have to go now." Kyle wasn't all that worried. It wasn't like Dana to miss her regular appointment with Dr. Harris, but when he'd called her office, the receptionist said she had gone home. Apparently, she wasn't feeling well. Kyle was wondering if she had another hangover. Still, Kyle was irritated that the garage door was open, but at least he knew that Dana had been home, since he knew it was closed when he left for the office that morning. That the front door was unlocked also got on his nerves. What the hell was Dana thinking, and where was she now? It wasn't that they lived in a crime-ridden neighborhood or anything, but was it too much to ask that we close and lock the doors? He was halfway down the hallway, reaching up to loosen his tie when he noticed the door at the end of the hallway was open. He could see the light from the noonday sun brightly framing the door. And that's when he remembered he had seen something on the floor. He retraced his steps back to the hallway entrance and looked down at the piece of fabric he had stepped over the first time by. That's when he started to worry. Dana was in full panic mode. It was like someone had slapped her in the face and awoken her from a nightmare. She glanced at her watch again. She only had 2 hours left before Kyle was home. It was enough time. Barely, but enough. She squealed to a stop in the driveway, barely noticing that the garage door was now closed. Then she dropped her keys as she tried to unlock the front door. Why was she having so much trouble with the damn door? She flew down the hallway and into the room. She stripped the bedding and closed the door, running back down the hallway. She dropped what she was holding on the dining room table and started to remove her skirt and blouse and bra, tossing them onto the pile. Then she remembered what was missing. She ran naked back towards the hallway, searching the floor. Come on, hell. Looking for these? Dana looked up, instinctively covering herself. Kyle, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. Kyle was sitting in the living room, in his favorite leather chair, a bourbon in one hand and a pair of panties in the other. You missed your appointment, dear. Kyle, I wasn't feeling. Did you have sex with that kid in her room, sweetie? It was a mistake. Is that what I think it is on your leg, sweetie? Oh God. Oh my God. You win, Dana. I'm done. You've pushed and pushed and pushed. You win. Dana reached for him. This couldn't be happening. Don't you dare touch me. Don't you dare touch me. In all the time she'd known Kyle, he had never raised his voice to her. Not in junior high, when they had met for the first time and become friends. Not in high school, when they had dated. Not one time when she left him to go to college on the West Coast, when he called her every week without fail. Not even when she told him that she felt like they should see other people while they were so far apart. And never once in their 10 years of marriage. Kyle, I'm sorry. Just shut up, Dana. Shut the hell up. Just get out of my house. Get out and don't come back. She dressed as quickly as she could, crying all the way to her car. She was too embarrassed to call her friends. There was no way she was going to see her parents. Why she called Jake, she never understood. They didn't know each other. He wouldn't be able to help her in any way. Unfortunately, he answered her call and was just too stupid to know when he should leave well enough alone. When Kyle didn't show up for their next counseling session, Dana knew what it meant. Her tearful confession to Dr. Harris that night started the long and painful process of admitting her demons and finding a way to progress towards healing. The petition for divorce had arrived 2 weeks later. Kyle called her to let her know it was coming so that the process server could find her at her parents' house and not at work. Dana saw Jake one more time while she was out with friends catching a movie at the downtown megatheater. His arm was in a cast and his eyes were surrounded by massive bruises. She had never seen anyone turn and walk away from her so quickly, let alone someone who had clearly been in a recent car accident. Kyle pled no contest to misdemeanor disturbing the peace after several weeks of plea bargaining with the district attorney. In the real world, people who hit other people get arrested. He was no exception. Fortunately, as a first-time offender, Kyle was able to enter a pre-trial diversion program that required him to continue to see a counselor. He was already seeing Dr. Harris, so it really changed nothing in his life. After 6 months of sessions and a year of probation, his record would be expunged. His sentence for Manny was far more challenging. No gym time for a year and 10 hours a week of community service at the youth center. Manny still came to Kyle's house on the weekends to train him in his garage. During the first month of private sessions, Kyle was pretty sure Manny was trying to carry out a self-enforced death sentence. After 10 months of haggling, Dana finally agreed to the terms of the divorce, requesting one last face-to-face with Kyle before signing. That is how they found themselves in the conference room. The dark cherry bookshelves and tables and wingback leather chairs didn't scream warm and comforting to Kyle, but he sat there anyway. It wasn't his first choice for a place to have a conversation, but it was all he had. For maybe the first time, they really talked about Emily's death and how it had affected them. And they reminisced about the good memories of their little girl and her short time on Earth. Kyle, I just want to say that I am as sorry as I have ever been in my entire life about what I put you through. You have every right to be angry with me. I have no excuses. But I have made a lot of progress in counseling and I understand what went wrong, and I would never, ever hurt you again. And I would do anything at all, if you would just give me one more chance to love you, for us to be a couple again. Kyle knew this was where the conversation would lead. And, honestly, he had given it a lot of thought. More than he ever thought he would. But he sat quietly for a minute to collect his thoughts. Anyway, you know, Dana, I believe you. I really do. And I do love you. I know that for certain. I suppose that I have always loved you. And I can't imagine that ever really changing. The 3 happiest days of my life involved you. The day you came back from college and were waiting for me on my porch. The day you married me, and the day you gave me Emily. I loved those days, and I am happy I will always have those memories and that I share them with you. You were my first love and the love of my life. And nothing will ever change that. Do you remember the first time we made love? I would never forget that night, Kyle. I know. That's not what I meant, though. Do you remember how nervous we were? 2 virgins, fumbling in the dark. God, it was pathetic. Dana laughed hard at that. I know. It's so true. And I remember when you were pregnant and in the hospital on bed rest, and you were so sick and I was so scared. I prayed so hard that you would be okay, because I knew I couldn't live without you, and I knew I couldn't love you any more than I did. Then we took Emily home, and you made me check the car seat 4 times and wouldn't let me drive faster than 25. And I knew I was wrong, and that I actually could love you more. And I did. Those are the memories I carry with me every day, and they make me smile. But then I remember that Emily died and took half my heart with her. And I needed you so much. And you blamed me for her death, for a reason that I still don't understand. Instead of finding comfort in your arms, I endured punishment after punishment from you. For an accident. For a crime I didn't commit. And then you embarrassed me and disrespected me and humiliated me. And I can't say that I will ever understand why. So, no matter how much I love you, and I do, and no matter how many times I forgive you, and I have, I will always, always hate you for that. Even if it's only a tiny bit. Unfortunately, as sad as that makes me, I know it's true and I think you do too. Yeah, Kyle.
Do.
In her room, Dana. Anywhere but her room. Dana signed the papers as she cried and left the room after giving Kyle a tender kiss on the cheek. If he had known she was going to move back to the West Coast and that he would never see her again, he might have said goodbye. A year later, Kyle found himself sitting under the shade of the massive oak trees. It was his monthly visit, and today was what would have been Emily's 13th birthday. I brought you lilies today. Mrs. Johnson, at the flower shop, told me these are her favorite flowers. Even though Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and roses seem to be everywhere you look, I thought you might like these better. You know, to be original. Who you talking to? Kyle was startled as the tiny little girl plopped down on her knees right next to him. I wasn't talking to my daughter. Is she in heaven like my daddy? Yes, she is in heaven. My mommy talks to my daddy too, but she cries a lot while they are talking, so I decided to take a walk. Did you bring her those flowers? Yes, I did. Emily loved flowers. I like flowers too. I have some on my dress. See? Her pudgy little fingers pulled the hem of her dress out so she could show him. There's one, and there's one. I don't know how many there are, but there are a lot. Yes, there certainly are. My name is Brianna and I'm 5. Well, Brianna, I think that is a beautiful name for a beautiful little girl. I'm Kyle. Do you know my mommy? She says that I'm beautiful too. Well, your mommy sounds like a very smart woman, but I don't think we've ever met. Do you think she might be wondering where you are? I think so, but I'm not sure I should go back. She told me, stay put. And I said, yes, ma'am. 'Cause that's what you're supposed to say when you're being good. But I got bored and now I am here with you. So, she is going to be in a mood when I get back. Well, maybe you and I should go together, so that she won't be worried. We can check her mood together, okay? Okay, maybe we should bring flowers. My daddy always brought my mommy flowers when he was in trouble. That sounds like a very good idea. Kyle figured his best bet was to make their way back to the caretaker's house at the main gate. He was certain that's where a mother missing her child would go. He didn't want to frighten the little girl, so they casually strolled back, with 3 lilies from Emily's bouquet. About halfway through their journey, Brianna took a hold of Kyle's hand as she stumbled and struggled to keep her balance on the damp grass in her dress shoes. Abby Jacobs realized that her daughter Brianna wasn't sitting behind her as soon as she finished crying. She hadn't meant to break down and lose control again. It had been more than a year, after all, but money was tight and the insurance money was almost gone, and she was working 60 hours to make ends meet and barely scraping by. She told her husband to sell that damn motorcycle, but he never listened, and her anger and frustration had spilled over once again. She panicked almost immediately, frantically searching around headstones looking for any sign of her daughter. Then, looking far off in the distance, she saw Brianna, sitting on her knees in the grass talking to a man. Abby laughed quietly at the realization that this dress would soon match all the others, with giant grass stains at her knees. She was also shocked by 2 things. First, that her little peanut had been brave enough to wander that far. Second, that she seemed to be speaking to the man. Brianna had withdrawn almost immediately after her father had been killed in the accident, and she wouldn't even stand near any man, even her grandfather. But there she was, chatting away. Abby felt like she should run down and reclaim her daughter, but she didn't get any sense that the man posed any kind of threat. Still, she watched them carefully. After a few minutes, the pair started walking back towards her, but she didn't think they had seen her yet. Her hand rushed to her mouth and a tear formed in her eye as they got closer. Brianna had taken the man's hand, giggling and smiling as she slipped in her dress shoes. That smile always warmed Abby's heart, and unfortunately Brianna hadn't been smiling all that much lately. For the first time, she could see the man clearly and Abby had to giggle again. Her daughter had excellent taste in strangers. Tall and handsome, check and check. His jeans and t-shirt stretched in all the right spots to indicate that all of the best muscles were hidden underneath. But it was his casual stroll, and gentle laugh and voice, and the smile that was plastered to his face as he let Brianna lead the way, that started the tingling in her stomach. Those delicious feelings that she had put away while she mourned and coped were rushing back. Kyle didn't notice the woman watching them until they were about 20 feet away, but spoke up as soon as he noticed her. Does this one belong to you? Oh my God, Brianna, why did you wander off? The woman raced towards the girl and dropped to her knees, hugging the little girl fiercely to her chest. Mommy, you're squishing my guts. Don't ever do that again, young lady. The stern voice didn't quite match the smirk on the young woman's face. Kyle guessed the woman was in her late 20s. The blonde curls were a match, So were the green eyes, and the cute part, too. It took the tug on his pant leg to make him realize that he had been staring. He looked down into Brianna's shining smile. "We're in trouble. Use the flowers," she whispered, a little too loudly. Okay. Hi, I'm Kyle Watson." Kyle extended his hand, and once he had hers, he couldn't quite force himself to let it go. "Abby Jacobs, thank you for bringing my daughter back." "Oh, it was no trouble. These are for you." "Why, thank you, Kyle Watson." "You're welcome, Abby Jacobs." "I'm hungry," Brianna added. Kyle couldn't help but laugh, and Abby soon followed. Brianna joined in so that she wouldn't feel left out. "Can I buy you ladies lunch?" Abby smiled and reached her hand up to touch her face to confirm that it was actually there. "Yeah, I think we'd really like that." Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.